Oh, hello.
Hi. Feeling frustration in this moment with my mouse pad.
Playing with your
Okay.
mouse pad is not going the way you wanted it to.
Is it too loud outside? Can you hear all the winds? We're pretty good.
Okay. I think we're good.
Okay, let's go.
I think we're good. Well, first I just want to welcome everybody into our little play space. We're gonna be in the messy middle today. We're just gonna bat around some thoughts, ideas, questions. We're gonna get curious and play like we always do.
Mhm.
And um, we're gonna play with a little bit of empowerment and unconditional love and that deep curiosity and wonder that we carry into just about every topic. So, on that note, I just want to invite you all to become present in this moment. Take just a hot frickin' second to connect with your breath. Just notice, are you breathing? God, I hope so. That life force energy that we take into our bodies, and then it brings out the gift of who we are in our voice, in the molecules. I could get totally meta on that, but I'm not going to at this moment. So, thankful for this breath because it's part of what keeps us here, right?
Yep.
And the energy that keeps our hearts beating. So, be here now or be here later, but be here because it's the best and only place to be is in the present, right?
That's all you got. That's all you
Got
got.
all you. Yep. So, we're playing with the topic of money, retirement, and right work. So, for our listeners, Erin and I, play with human design. We love Karen Curry Parker and her quantum human design view. And we play with that as a tool, as a toy, as a means of self-discovery and exploration, and to ask ourselves the questions, because it's in asking the question that the answers get brought to us. And with our empowerment, we play with embodying this work. And what we mean by embodying is really taking it in, not just sitting in our minds with a bunch of thoughts and letting those sort of drive us batshit crazy, because they will. If we just stay in our minds, and for those of you that cannot see me right now, I'm doing the Vogue. Like, I'm framing my head in Vogue. When we stay up in our heads and we don't embody, we don't feel our body, we don't use our body for the thing that it was designed to be, um, we can get a little heady with some shit. So we're gonna play with money today, and I have some questions that I wrote down from Erin. So I'm putting on my glasses. Gonna get real serious here now. Just kidding.
You guys got to go to the YouTube channel and see Tanya.
What if we're actually not saving for retirement? What if there is no retirement? Why are we stockpiling money? I mean, do you have like 20 years worth of food stockpiled in your refrigerator, freezer, and pantry? If you do, uh, and what is our right work? So, Erin, one of the things that you talk about a lot is, why are we placing so much value on the future versus our present? And do you know, like, you ask people, do you know that the future doesn't really exist? It gets this made up space.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what are you saving for? Um, so, I want to ask you, what were you saving for with retirement? What has been your
I was
experience?
saving for, at some point in time, I was going to get to stop working and and doing what I had, air quotes, had to do to then enjoy my life and do what I wanted to do. Um, what that might have looked like was traveling more. I don't know necessarily if I had an idea of what I would be doing. I don't know if I thought that I would be generating money when I retired. I just know that I was taught from the financial industry and also parental, and I'm sure there's societal in there, right? Is that you work to make money and then you get to enjoy it at some later date, whenever that is. And I think that I don't know, I can't like pinpoint, right? Like when was the time that it, really got drilled into me. But I know that the idea of doing what you love and letting money be the byproduct of that was not something that I was taught.
And conversely, for me, now my mom was a workaholic and she was a single mom. However, she always told me, do what you love and the money will follow. Like, do it. Like many of us have heard that old adage,
Mhm.
um, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And
Mhm.
for me, that has been very true. Like I could do this, I could work with clients, I could be in this space of transformation, healing and holding and playing till the day I die. Like
Mhm.
I'll be coaching, mentoring, teaching, loving all the humans until the day that I die.
Yep.
Um, as a means to make money. And there was also a period of time where, for me, I didn't believe that I was worthy or deserving of receiving money. So a lot of what I did, I gave away.
Yep.
Um, you had a high value for the work that you did. It
Mhm.
was oftentimes actually disregarded by others.
That might be a fair statement. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that it probably wasn't, if you're referring to, me and my family's business, I think that there was some value on, obviously, it was a very, it's a construction company, right? So it's very, if you want to label it as a blue collar, right? Like the value of being able to physically use your hands to fix a problem, build a water system, do those types of things, there's value there, right?
Mhm.
And I always believe there's also value in intellectual. Like there's not one person that's more valuable than another. It's just we're all we're all here to bring the value to then, create something and put it out into the world. And so I think for a while, um, I minimized my value. I didn't stand up for myself because I didn't feel that there's actually two things. One, because I was so good at what I did, I think it can, on the outside looking in, it can look like it doesn't take a lot of time. So if you have a belief that time is money, or you work for, um, you put in your time, if you do it in a shorter amount of time, it doesn't mean that it gets paid less. It's that because I had so much learning and I had invested so much into my intellectual property, for lack of a better word, that's why I could do it in a short amount of time. And I think with the 40-hour work week, right? Like if I could get it done, which I could get it done in a 3-day work week. But if you are around people that believe the the 40 hours is what you get paid for, then there's that disparity of, well, then do I get paid for the 40 hours because I can do it in, 30 or 25?
Mhm.
So because I didn't value myself at the time and I minimized my gifts, then obviously when that got mirrored back to me, I agreed with it.
Yeah. I just remember how fired up you were on a Marco Polo last night, talking about like if you had to do mechanical work, if you had to do work with your hands, you
Oh,
could
for sure.
totally learn it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was always, something that I have said that like, and I've told you this, just because I can doesn't mean I want to. I can teach
Hmm.
myself anything. Like any human can teach themselves anything if they have a desire to do it, right? But where we kind of get muddy is we actually don't have a desire. So then it feels like effort and it feels like work. And that was something that I didn't want to spend my time doing. I knew where my brilliance was. I knew that, me and the intellectual and the 30,000 foot view and the visionary was more of my gift. And so I wanted to have people that were excellent and wanted to do all of the labor part, right? And
Hmm.
valuing them for their gifts, right? I mean, that is a gift to be able to work with your hands and to the mechanical and the electrical and all of that. The other thing that I wanted to notate on was that we have equated work with boring and effort. And I don't know what Gene Keys with Richard Rudd, he talks about this. This might be in the 8th Gene Key, if I'm correct. But he talks about how we have, as a society, we have deemed working as boring, as monotonous, as going through the motions, right? You just do it. But that's not really what work is. But we, as a Western society, I should say, have equated that term with those feelings. So when you actually do work that you love, you're lit up. You can do it, and this is maybe where you talk to like as a generator or a manifesting generator. You've got energy for doing something you love. I can work all day long. I love it if I'm doing something that I enjoy.
Yes. So I want to bring us back to 2 points. One is talking about right work, and that we can talk about from the perspective of how we use human design for what is our right work. But before we get to that, I really want to talk about this idea of how we have set up a societal belief pattern expectation that we work hard now, work hard up front, and save for this future.
Mhm.
And where this old paradigm, I think, is breaking down, and maybe even COVID actually highlighted the unsustainable model that retirement has been. So when we look at retirement, and I'm going to this is going to be a messy question for you because I don't have exactly the right words. I don't even know what the fuck they would be. Um, but I would love it if you would speak to the idea of what the current and past model of retirement has looked like, and what are some of your perspectives as to why we set it up that way? Why did we set up retirement to be the way that it currently is with the 401ks or IRAs or savings or pensions? What was the expected outcome of that? But what are we actually experiencing?
I don't know this for sure. This is what comes through is that before there was 401k and IRAs, because that didn't start until the 70s, there were pensions, right? You worked for a company and they provided a pension. And I think as back in the 50s, the 40s, you did a lot of manual labor, right? So possibly something I'm playing with, curious, want to still, investigate, I guess, is did we used to think we were going to need retirement because we were doing such physical labor work? I mean, if you think about what our grandfathers did, they worked out in the fields or they worked, very manual labor type of work. And the idea that could you be doing that type of work when you're 60, 70, or 80, I think the thought process was no, right? Like the body's going to need to rest or might be burnt out or might give out at some point in time. And so I'm curious if that's why, pensions were originally started and the whole idea of retirement. And then as consciousness evolved, right, as we continued to evolve as a species, we started to do more intellectual work, but we still kept some of our old ways or old paradigms of doing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this idea that we still need to save for retirement, even though a lot of what we do is sitting at a computer all day long. And,
Which I just want to side note here, sitting at a computer all day can almost be as detrimental as, if not more, than somebody that is moving their body physically every day.
100%. I am only talking about from the intellectual standpoint,
Right.
The body, if we ignore the part of like sitting in a chair all day is not good for your health. If we're just talking about the intellectualness of like, can we continue to create and do things with our mind until the day we die, right? Like we are creative beings, creative species. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So the idea of, 401ks and IRAs came onto the scene in the 70s. And I think it was also people wanting to take ownership, of as a pension, you don't have control over where the funds are invested and things of that sort. So that's just kind of set for you. So then this comes along and you're able to choose your stocks and your mutual funds and all of those kinds of things. And so then there was some ownership or responsibility that the person investing got to partake in. But the belief or the idea still stayed of we're saving for retirement. We need to accumulate a certain amount of money to then be able to have it when we don't work anymore.
Yes. So then when we look at right work, and we also look at something else.
When you say right work, what you really mean is the correct work for your human design.
Correct.
Okay.
And the right work for us as humans with the awareness that we have now. You talked about consciousness expanding. And what I read in part of that is you and I discuss a lot about neural pathways.
Yes.
We discuss the wiring that goes on in the human body. And so I want to look at this right work with the types. And I also, before we get there, I want to just talk about like human beings as a whole, and then we'll start bringing it down into the energy types. Human beings as a whole, we have neurobiology. Not only in our brains do we have neurological circuits, but in our in our pineal gland, which is in our brain, in our thyroid, which is in our throat, in our heart, in our lungs, in our digestive organs, in our sexual organs. Every organ system within the body actually has neural pathways. They have the connections, the nerves that are established and run a certain path. So, Erin, I would love it if you would share with our listeners what happens when we have had the neural pathways of retirement and that model of we work until we can't and then we retire. What have you seen happen here?
It's the idea of you're in saving mode, right? So your saving muscle is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to a point or we're taught, okay, you're going to retire and then you're going to start taking money out of your IRAs, your investment assets, things of that sort. And I haven't found with as many people as I've talked to that it's just this easy light switch that you flip that you just start taking money out. because you have been and built that neural pathway of saving for so long. Spending from that place has not been developed and or practiced. So we're telling people we need to save. We're telling them, and in my experience, it was always, and other people that I talk to too, it's like we can always be saving more. And I'm using air quotes, right? It's like, it's almost like it's never enough. You can never have enough money, right? Always be asking for more money to save, to invest, to make sure, right? So this idea that we are constantly saving, and that is kind of what the train that we're on. And then we're expected at point of retirement to jump trains and then to start using that money. And our bodies, our nervous systems, our neural pathways do not compute, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't know how to do that. And it is, for the people that I've talked to, for myself, right? It is a learned behavior, because there's so much also balled up with that of like, you don't want to use up all your money. You only have X amount, because in the industry, we don't really talk much about, well, you'll always be generating an income, right? How many times have you heard, well, you'll be on a fixed income, right? Fixed
Hmm.
income, right? So then there becomes that fear associated with, well, I can't spend. I don't want to spend too much, or how much am I spending? Or it's all around fear of, I won't have enough to last me until I die. I'm never going to make any more money. I'm on a fixed income. It's so much restriction and constriction. And yeah, your neural pathways are like, I only know how to save. I don't know how to use my money.
Yeah. And I only know how to live in the future. I
Yes.
don't know how to live in the present, because
Yes.
we're not even paying attention oftentimes to how we're using money now and how many more money comes in. And then we're going to just stop doing what we've been doing, not have any sort of purpose for why we get up every day, because we are not
Mhm.
doing what we love. We're doing what we have to do to
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah. For money. Hmm.
Yeah. I think they have a word for that. Oh, whore. That's right. Whore. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because there is a huge belief in society that being a whore is strictly for sex, right? But
Hmm.
I very much was a money whore, very much. And I think that there are a lot of people, at first that might be like, well, I'm not that way. It's like, if you are sacrificing or compromising any part of yourself, your heart, your soul, your body for money, in an acceptable air quote way that society deems, or not, that is what we are. I mean,
Hmm.
I've said it many times, like I have sold my soul for money. This is something else that I think that, then if you have worked and done something that you haven't necessarily loved and enjoyed doing, using that money is really difficult, because you've worked so hard for it. You knew what you had to give up, right? I
Yep.
knew how many times that I didn't, either, you know, did vacations while I worked, or, insert whatever I did that compromised myself, my time with my family, for working and for money. So we have this um aversion to
Hmm.
using our money, because think of how much we had to give up and work hard for it, compromise ourselves for it. We don't want to do that. We don't want
Yeah.
to ever do that again.
I've seen that with my husband. Um, when we had made the decision to get out of our house and to let go of our things, which by and large, I feel this way. I felt like my things owned me. I didn't own them. They owned
Yeah.
me. Um, and so when we decided to just let everything go, I think one of the most challenging things that my husband noted was that He's like, I had to work so hard and so long for all of these things. It's taken me 25 to 30 years to build up all of this. And in a matter of months, it was gone. And a
Yep.
lot of his value was wrapped up in those things, which is the same as money, right? We
Yes.
give the money our value.
Yeah. We hoard different things, right? For me, it was never hoarding material things, right? I'm not really a
Mhm.
materialistic person. Yes, I have nice things and I don't have a lot of things, right? But money was that was something that I hoarded because it was, yeah. And I think that it can be, like you said, for, David, it's, you realize like what you had to give up, what you had to compromise for those things. And we don't want to let those things go.
Yeah. So we think we're going to have to work really hard to get them back again.
Yeah.
I've been on the other side of the fence where I have just been like, no, everything pretty much just comes to me when I'm ready for it. Everything I've ever truly wanted, I've received. And trusting in that is, well, that's a whole nother podcast episode that we can talk about, is trusting in how we manifest. So I do want to circle back to our energy types. And so Erin and I am a manifest generator. So I call it the Jekyll and Hyde hybrid of a pure manifester and a pure generator. I oftentimes feel like I'm, we all as humans have polarity within us: good, bad, right, wrong, dark, light. We all play with these polarities as humans. And as a manifest generator, I sometimes feel like, boy, let's just turn that one up a notch. So I have a little experience for the manifester that I can speak to. I have a little experience for the generator I can speak to. Erin speaks wonderfully about being a generator because she has really come to know what that means for her. And we share parents that are projectors and reflectors, which are a much smaller percent of the population. Reflectors, for sure, are like 1% of the population. And so, if you're curious about what your human design is, we're working on um, being able to get your chart at whouniversity.com. And in the meantime, there are a couple of other resources that you can use. Genetic Matrix, I believe, will give you a free chart, geneticmatrix.com. Or you can go to Karen Curry Parker's Quantum Human Design and get your chart there if you'd like as well. Having an understanding about what your energy type is. Again, this is something that we play with, but we explore and use this as a tool to help us. And I personally didn't know about human design until about 3 or 4 years ago. And since understanding my type, I have like I felt like I had my life given back to me in a lot of ways. Erin, what has been your experience as a generator, finding out about human design and what it means to be a generator?
Yeah, I think that I've always used it as a tool to empower myself, and understanding it kind of connects the dots, like understanding why I've done the things that I've done.
Hmm.
And when I say unconsciously, I don't mean like from um, yes, it's from an unaware place, but it's like actually who I am, right? Like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Like as I read it or as I learn more about myself, it's like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Like I was doing it already. I was already acting by my design. I just didn't know and have a name for it. And so it's been an enlightening experience because then I get to use it as a way to enhance, and like I said already, empower myself versus I think use the outside world against me.
Yeah. So, with the topic of money and
Yep.
work,
Yep.
what have you noticed and what have you come to embody as a result of playing with this idea of I am a generator?
Well, the tendencies having and I want to say this because I think sometimes, and this is what I tell Tanya all the time, like I use lots of tools. I take what I want and I leave the rest. So you are not your chart.
Hmm.
You are a magical being, right? A once in a lifetime event. Um, and you might have tendencies that, when you look at your chart, it's like, oh, like I was saying before, like this makes sense. So, in terms of having tendencies of being a generator, one of the things in terms of money, what I realized the other day was okay, if 70, fact check me, 75% of the population has manifest generator and or generator tendencies, 70% of the population, we love to work. We love to do things that light us up, that
Hmm.
we find value, and we love getting out of bed and having a contribution, right? Making a contribution to the world and whatever that looks like. And so the idea of we're going to retire and we're never going to work again, that's like taking our toys away from us. Like, I mean, when you really think about it, like we're all creative beings and we all have value. And for the generators and the Manny Gens, we love to generate and produce and create and, see that stuff to fruition. And so not being able to do that, like that's our life force energy, right? Like
Hmm.
that's what we truly love doing. So I just was pondering that the other day and like how is no wonder why we have, you know, you hear people that talk about like, oh, well, he retired and then he passed away. It's like if we don't have something that we're working towards or that we're doing that fulfills us and lights us up, our body's like, okay, well then I'm checking out then. Like
Yeah.
what's the point?
I'm really glad that you did say that about these are tendencies. Erin and I both, for our listeners, it's really important to know that we're kind of anti-label. Not that we're anti-label. It's just that when you put a label on something, we tend to want to see it as that. And this is a bigger concept that we can explore perhaps in another podcast. But when we put a label on something and we see it as that, we don't allow it to change, to grow, to evolve. And so we want to be aware of when we're talking about human design that we use this as a tool to empower and to play with is we also realize we are not only all all of the chart, we are
Yep.
all to some degree all of the types. And
Yep.
what we play with is this idea of what have been our tendencies, what have been the things that we have either tried to morph ourselves to be more of what someone else expects versus being true to who we are, because that's what we're all
Yes.
about, like being true
Yep.
to who we are. And we use human design and gene keys in a way to, and plenty of other modalities to explore who we truly are and to give us almost something like something to push off of, something to explore, something to be curious about. And so, with like if we just look at the definition of a generator type is designed to respond. That doesn't mean that generators don't get ideas. Like a manifester is designed to initiate, to make things
Hmm.
happen.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of times people that study human design use being a generator as, oh gosh, I wish I wasn't that type because I don't get to initiate, create, do those kinds of things. That is not true.
Yep.
Being aware, though, that we have tendencies that we'll get an idea, we'll have an idea come to us. Then it is our job to wait. And I think that actually, like all of humanity, including manifestors, could benefit by pausing. As I love when Erin says, can we just wait a hot fucking second here?
Mhm.
Manifestors need to pause to be able to inform what they're doing. Generators need to pause for a moment, sometimes a little bit longer than a moment, to make sure that this idea that they have is the right idea for them. Because oftentimes we'll get excited about something and we want to just get in there and do it, right?
Yep.
We live in a Nike society of just do it, right? Just make it happen. But there is an extreme benefit in asking yourself, having that moment to pause, to look for something to respond to outside of yourself, to say, yes, this is what I'm responding to. Because in the vein of who university is all about, we say, don't ask how, ask who. Why? Because we have to really be connected to who we truly are. We live in a society that's all about doing, how to get it done. They ask how, they ask what, they ask why. And if we're using these questions and being up here in the head box in our little Vogue spot, right? We oftentimes say yes to something that we don't want to say yes to, or we don't have the opportunity to say no when we really want to. And that falls into this idea or concept of right work, which also falls into this paradigm that we're playing with. Like, if we're doing something that we love, if we're doing something that lights us up, if we're doing something that is a contribution of us, of our gifts that we have to give to another, to give to society, to give to our communities, to give to all of us as humanity, when we have that, that is gold. That is our value. And so when we are stuck in this paradigm of thinking that we have to work a certain way, we have to work for a future that may or may not exist, and we have to do whatever we need to do to get that done, we are essentially cutting ourselves out of the equation of value. We are removing our life force energy, working for a future that may or may not exist. And like, this all gets me so fired up. I know it gets Erin fired up too.
And I want to go back to every type is supposed to wait, because you have to check in and see if it's true for yourself. We're so conditioned, even though the manifestor, let's just talk about the manifestor, even though the manifestor might come up with an idea and initiate, it doesn't mean that that's what the manifestor wants to do, right? It could be, oh, this is an idea that I have. And then you're thinking, oh, it could be helpful, but we have to check in with ourselves. Is that what lights us up? And so the pausing is, for every type. And Kieran Curry Parker talks a lot about this. Like, the pausing is for us to check in and to be like, but is this what I want?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, we lost your sound. So you were just talking about even the manifestor has to pause to give time to check in with the body, check in with the intuition. And gosh, there's a whole nother podcast, intuition versus our ego minds, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So the pause gets you to wait a hot second, to check in with yourself, to actually ask, is that something what you really, right, heart, desire, intuition really want? Or is that an ego thing? And we're so used to acting from our ego, from our conditioning. But that's why we need to pause, right? To check in, to see, what is it? Is it something that really lights us up? Is that a sacral yes for a generator and or a mani-gen? Or is that something that's coming from our conditioning, from a should, have to, and it's training that muscle. That's where that pause is necessary.
Yeah. I think one of the things I love about human design is it actually correlates a lot with what we know about neurobiology. Um, we have those neural pathways. Um, we have the energy in different centers, and one of the energy centers is the throat. It's our ability to communicate. It's also where the thyroid holds a lot of our power in our bodies, right? It's hormone regulation, etc. Um, in our emotions are also quite powerful. Oftentimes, the things that we think that we want are really about a feeling that we want to have. Um, our sacral is our guts. Our sacral is that gut response, that gut knowing. Um, so we have several motors where it comes to human design, and I'm not going to go into any of that. But what a generator or a manifest generator is going to tap into is that sacral gut knowing response. And so bringing it back and tying it to money and retirement and how we work. Erin, what has been your experience, and what are you in the practice right now of changing your neural pathways? Like, what was your before? What is your messy middle right now? And what are you moving towards with your practice?
And I want to say, I'm laughing over here because I want to say, and your gut response is going to be like the exact opposite of what your mind is saying, which is what is like such torment, right? This
Yes.
is where love and compassion and curiosity and tenderness and all of those emotions, we got to get good at practice feeling.
Hmm.
Because when you do start acting from your gut, if you're a man-gen or a generator, or you start acting from your is it authority, Tanya?
Hmm.
Is that the okay? So in human design, you start acting from your authority. It is not going to come from the head,
Nope.
and it is more than likely going to be in direct violation, is the word that comes to mind,
Violation.
with your mind. And that has been the hardest for me,
Yeah.
because there is so much deconditioning I've had to do and still do, right? I mean,
Hmm.
this is where I think it goes back to, if you ask me, I know what I want, oh, I will tell you. And then my mind is like, but how? And this. And I mean, it just will, in the peanut gallery, right? Like it will just rattle off, and it is it's the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah. And you have said in the past that you put a lot of value on your intellectual reasoning, logical deduction, and sometimes our guts are like, fuck logic.
Yeah, a lot of times it is.
If you're really asking me, I'm going to tell you this.
Yes.
And
And
we're like,
it's not
no.
going to make sense, right? And so for Erin, I've used that as a crutch, right? And in the financial industry, like, it makes sense to save money. It makes financial intellectual sense to, you know, stay at your job and not go follow your heart and your passion. It makes financial intellectual sense to um, find the cheaper hotel, or, insert whatever it is, right? To save the most money, to be cost conscious. It makes all of that financial intellectual sense. And when I really look back at the big moves, if you want to call it, that I've made, they've not made any fucking financial and intellectual sense. I mean, I remember being at our first house. We call it 2504 because that was the address, and wanting to move to 300, which was the next address. And it made no financial sense. I remember being in our bed, and I had a pros and a cons list. And this is what we're taught, right? We're taught to do a pros and a cons. And it was going to take more money to run as that new household 300. It was going to be less money investing in our retirement. I mean, the cons list, one, And still I was like, but this is what I want. Right. And at the time,
Hmm.
I didn't know that that was my heart's desire. That was my intuition. And then looking back now after we sold it, like I could not have even imagined the amount of profit that we would have made. And this is where it comes for Erin has really come to leaning into the 5D, to leaning into trusting, to leaning into her intuition, because it's way smarter than our minds are. Um, and that has been something that I've had to embrace, and it hasn't been easy. And I'm grateful for my mind. It's kept me safe, right? It has done what it's, let me say it this way. It's got me to where I am,
Hmm.
but it's not going to get me to where I want to go. And I have really had to lean into, you know, it doesn't make sense to use your investments to take off of work for 3 years. It doesn't make sense to. But this is where our minds can't even imagine. I mean, we have great imaginations and we're still so limited in our imaginations. Like we can't even imagine what can come from when we follow our intuition. And it's really fucking scary for the for the logical, rational people. I mean, I think it's scary for everyone, right? But like
Yeah.
for the person that really has counted on A plus B equals C, it's terrifying. It's really being in the unknown, and that is a practice that I've really gotten comfortable with. I'm not 100% at it, right? But it's being in the unknown, and when you really start to extrapolate it and pull that apart, like that is actually where we have to live.
Hmm.
Because if you know what your life is going to look like, you're not really creating anything different or new or exciting or,
Yeah, we're creating a predictable future,
yeah,
one where we have worked and given up all of our energy to something that we may not be in love with, inspired by, wanting to be our best selves and create our best selves as a result. Um, and that's a really shitty place to be. And then a lot of people will ask us, well, how? Do we just quit now and go spend all of our money on the things that we want?
and this is my answer because you've asked me this so many times. It's doing the little things, right? We
Hmm.
don't get to jump from, you can, but I didn't jump from I want to quit my job to I want to travel the world to I want to live in Maui. It was okay, I'm just not going to do the dishes today. And I'm going to sit with honoring that desire that's in my heart to rest and sit on the couch and watch Netflix. For Erin, right? That's what
Hmm.
Erin's workaholic addictive personality needed in that moment. I don't know what it is for our listeners. For every one of you, you're going to have to ask yourself, what is my secret desire? What is it that I'm wanting? What is one thing that I can do that's going to take me one step closer to that? And it's getting good at feeling those uncomfortable emotions, because what's going to happen, for example, for Erin, when she said, I'm not doing the dishes tonight, I'm going to have dirty dishes and I'm going to sleep with dirty dishes, the mind was like, well, that's really lazy. And oh my goodness. And that's really gross. And what kind of mom are you? And what are you teaching your kid? And, all of the
Hmm.
things that our mind is going to babble at us. And so it's getting good at allowing our ego, AKA our mind, our rational mind, to say what it's going to say and to still honor what our desires are and to allow it. So I'm not advocating to quit your job, but if that is a desire of yours, okay. So what are some steps that maybe it's, you know what, today I'm going to spend 30 minutes and I'm going to look at this other job that really lights me up. And maybe it's you get to play on the internet for 30 minutes instead of, putting in the time at your current job, or telling your family you're not going to do XYZ and you're going to explore this. Like each of you, Tanya and I don't have the answers for you. We know how it worked for us, but what we do know is that all of us, if we want to have the life that we truly want, we have to get good at practicing, allowing those feelings to come up. We
Thoughts
have to
and
get,
feelings, yes.
yep, thoughts and feelings. We have to get good at taking action, inspired action to what feels good in our heart. We have to get good at feeling courage, which actually feels like shit, but no one talks about that. Courage doesn't feel good. Courage feels like me sitting on the toilet, me wanting to throw up, me breaking out in hot sweats, my underarms in flares. Like that's what courage feels like for me. It might be different for each person, right? But courage, courage is something that we have to practice and cultivate, right? Our courage muscle. Um, and we have to get good at receiving all other people's emotions because other people are going to get upset. Other people are going to be disappointed in us. Other people are going to maybe not talk to us or decide they don't want to be friends with us anymore, or you're going to start having hard conversations. And all of that is going to come from honoring our true desires. And I'm not here to sugarcoat it and say that it's easy, and it's also totally worth it. And when you're surrounded by other people that are doing the same thing in regards to honoring themselves, we're not all on the same path, right? But when you are surrounded, what has made it easier for me is having you, right, Tanya, to be able to be like, I'm in it today, right? And the support, and that's why we created the playground, is to have a space where a community of other people get to say, like, there's comfort in saying me too, and not in the commiserating of it, but like, I feel you. I know exactly what you're going through.
Yep.
And it's like full on raining outside. It was just sunny and winds. And now I'm like, is that rain? Yeah, it's rain. Of support. Like I think the more support that you have, and not the commiserating support, but like, no, you're worth it. You're deserving of having the life that you want. And the only way to it is through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is what I talked a lot to clients and you, and talked with you and others about the difference between being in the hamster wheel versus the spiral staircase. When we're in the hamster wheel, we just keep doing the same shit day in, day out, hoping, wishing that there would be a different result. But there never is. The future is always out there, this hopeful thing that we're also very pessimistic about, right? We don't believe that it's actually going to work out that way. Versus the spiral staircase, which is like our thoughts and our feelings are going to come up. Our thoughts are the language of our ego mind. Our feelings are the language of this physical body. Shit's going to come up whenever we are pushing past a certain point, whenever we are changing one of those pathways. Like when you have walked a narrow pathway that says save, 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 save for years and years and years, and not just your own, but like you've got family, and that shit comes through in your DNA. That vibration, that experience comes through in your DNA. So we're only a couple of generations removed. Erin and Tanya are only a couple of generations removed from the Great Depression, where people were just taught to, save and protect and be very cautious about money. And so we've built those neural pathways that say save, save, save. Or in my case, we've built those neural pathways that say you don't know how to save, you can't hold on to money, you're no good with money. And, that also could be a whole nother podcast of feeling like we're lousy with money or we're bad with money. And then we just keep creating that same hamster wheel, only different, right? Same, only different.
I do want to say with the Great Depression, it was survival, right? Like our genetics like when you could not eat, that was a survival thing. And so in our genetic makeup, that is there. Like money does equal survival. And one of the things that I have learned is that whether you physically don't know where your meal is coming from, or you're in the belief, like your body and your brain believes that you don't know, or that you're going to run out of money, it's the fucking same.
Yep.
in our bodies. Our bodies don't know any different. And there's lots of talk around scarcity with people that don't have money. I don't know if there's lots of talk around people that have money and they feel still in scarcity. And so I think that's important to note that, like, in the Great Depression, like in our genes, that was survival.
Yep. Back then was money and food were very closely equated. A roof over your head, a safe place to be,
Yeah.
very closely equated with money.
Yeah.
So being in the hamster wheel, there's no shame in that. All of us have been there.
Yep.
Being to step into the spiral staircase is to have that courage, is to feel all those things that we're like, oh God, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to have this happen. I don't want somebody else to feel this. Like, let me just work so that the rest of my family doesn't have to feel the discomfort of not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. Like, let me be the provider. When you step into the spiral staircase, it's not that things magically change, but with each turn of the spiral, each time we come back to a greater awareness of how we've been operating, we recognize that pathway that said either save, 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 or you're a loser because you can't save money, or you're um, you've screwed something up and there's just no redemption in that. All of those things are not true. And we believe that they are. So to step into the spiral staircase is to start deconstructing, first becoming aware of those neural pathways, deconstructing, being curious, sitting with whatever discomfort that brings, whatever state of survival that brings, and then giving it a safe place to start coming out into the light and to be shifted and changed. That is what we are all about. And that is one of the reasons why we really wanted to talk about this idea of retirement, this idea of saving for a future, not living currently, not living in our now, not following the things that bring us more energy, which then allows us to create more. And we keep creating. We are creative beings. And when we think that we're just going to create and then stop, that's death. So,
Figuratively and literally.
yes, yes, our bodies don't know any difference. So, even if you have amassed yourself millions, but you believe it's not enough, you've got a problem. If you haven't saved and you feel like you will have to work until you die and you are stuck in the job that you have, you are dying right now.
Yep.
So, I most want our listeners to know that we've both been there. We've been on both sides of the track. We've been on the I have no money, I'm bankrupt, I'm broke. And if it weren't for the good graces of others, I would, like debtor's prison was a thing, right? She laughs, but she knows I'm true.
I do laugh because I'm just like, gosh, so much that we put around money, so much of our value we have in the past. And I think we're changing as a society, but like, that was like one of my things. It's like I had to go to the place where I didn't have any money, and the embarrassment and the shame and the disappointment and all of the things. And I also had to make the decision, because you talk about the hamster wheel over the spiral staircase. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to feel, because we're going to feel the feelings, whether we're going after our dreams or we're not.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm like, you know what? What am I going to say to myself? And what am I going to say to my kid? If I can look her in the eye and look myself in the eye and be like, I fucking gave it everything I had. Then that is, I'm willing to do that over saying that I'm not enough or I'm not worthy or not deserving, and I'm still going to feel what I feel right now. Like, I'm going for it. I'm not going to accept mediocrity anymore. At least at the end, I can say, which I don't think it'll happen, right? But like, at least at the end, I can be like, I was worthy, I was deserving, and I gave it everything I had.
Yeah,
And each one of us, right, are worthy and deserving of the life that we
absolutely.
want. And it doesn't have to look like, I know I talk a lot about luxury, and I'm also like a minimalist, right? Like, so it's not, it could be like, you just want to hang out with your kids, right? It's going to look different for every person. And the judgment that we have of what our life, like what our dream life looks like, it's going
Yeah,
to be different. And this keeps going back to us turning it in and looking at for ourselves what lights us up, what is it for us, because when we are trying to live a life that someone else has that isn't in alignment with what we have or want, it doesn't feel good.
mm-mm.
So yeah, to our listeners, it's, what is your secret desire? What is it that really lights you up? What is it that you tell yourself that would be amazing? And then your mind's like, but it would never happen.
It would never work.
It would never work.
You don't have enough money for that. Yeah. And a game that Erin and I like to play. What choices would you make? What would be most important to you if you found out today you had 6 months left to live, or 3 months? What if today was your last day? What are you doing? What are you choosing? This is really important, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're just advocating to go out and spend your money." And maybe, if it's the thing that lights you up, if it's the thing that not makes you lit up, but gets to let that light that's already in you come out. And there's a subtle and huge distinction between the two. When we live from a place of, if today was my last day, I talk about this all the time, that every day for me feels like a lifetime. I wake up in the morning, my eyes are open, my heart is beating, my lungs are moving air through me. Today is a gift. All I have is today. All I have is this moment. And when I go to bed at night, I'm like, peace out. I don't know if I'm going to wake up the next day.
Yeah.
So we should all be living. I use the word should. I would love to see each and every human being living in their highest every day, living from that place of, if this is my last shot today, I'm going to give it all I've got. I'm going to love. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to share. I'm going to be vibrant. Even if I am walking in to get chemo today, or dialysis, or I'm using the last few dollars that I have to put in my gas tank to take my kids to the park. If I'm giving my last dollar that I have to somebody who needs to eat, live from that space today. That's who I want to be. On that note,
I'm like, that's who I want to be. I'm just crying over here. So I'm waiting till I can like say something. Yeah. Right. And I think the fallacy is, oh, we'd be spending our money. No, you may not be, right? You'd be like, I'd be present at dinner. I'd be present when I'm on a phone call. I'd be present when,
yeah,
I'd be saying I love you. I would be honoring my body. I would be all of the things.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, 6 months, yes. But if today was your last day, you'd be present.
Yeah. So let every day be a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And every day that we get is part of that journey, right? journey of a lifetime.
On that note,
On that
grab my
note,
tissues.
I know I'm all like tingly and fired up, and I heard my husband come home from diving today, so I just want to go give him a big kiss and be present with him to hear about how his dives went today. So until next time,
Until next time, we love you all.
I love you. Bye.